So I just watched an interesting thing. What's it called now? Oh, jeez. It's called Gavin Young Philosophy, Deleuze, Deleuze, and Guattari, Guattari, on why you desire fascism / desire and politics in Anti-Oedipus. It's red rag to a bull, I'm afraid. This first off, he drops into the notion that fascism and populism are the same thing. They're not. Fascism, as far as we can tell, was driven, in the case of Mussolini and Hitler, by the bourgeois, not by the blue-collar working class. Otherwise, it would have gotten nowhere. The antonym of populist is elitist. And it is that you're arguing for, sitting there in your PJs in your little library. And there's nothing wrong with well, there is, because the thinking becomes dangerous. And I think it was the thinking that I've been railing against for a long time, and that I saw very reflected this time in the Democratic Party, their politics, their candidates, mostly what's being revealed about their position in the world, which is elitist. And at some point, hopefully, progressively, we will progress to the point to understanding that populism is democracy. And rather than condemning the policies that populists at the moment, the right-wing populists, and there are left-wing populists, we have a great tradition of that, but rather than proscribing the policies that movement is promoting, insofar as you actually know what they're promoting. Bernie Sanders is a populist, for instance. This stance, this, I'm reading out of a book, I'm quoting Freud, I'm quoting these two chaps, I'm reading a passage from this book. I'm not listening to you and hearing an original thought. I'm not hearing anything that came from you. You're quoting me something that you've read in a book that you happen to agree with. It's a very bad habit, I think. And I think going forwards, to state glibly, smugly that 72 million people were too stupid to realize that they're voting against their own better interests is a fascist level of arrogance, and useless. Now, I'm not. None of this condones Donald Trump, his policies. What it does do is begin to shed a light where you have not ever looked. You've never looked back into the tradition of what the Democratic Party has done or not done since FDR, certainly since John Kennedy. And the last couple have been pretty catastrophic. And I do mean the lovely Obama and the not so lovely Bill Clinton, in terms of presidency, and not to mention the Congresses. I can't honestly, because of the apparent nationalism on both sides, I can't honestly see much of a difference between the Democrat and the Republican. And of course, in the recent election, we were encouraged to find vast differences, whereas essentially there were very few differences. I find myself, the politicians of both parties, pretty repugnant. So the Republicans as much as the Democrats, and I think that's that's a huge failure, and there's much to be learned, and much learning to be done in how to convince and persuade people. And if you are convincing and persuading people that that the republic, the foundation of a republic, the founding of the republic, which is ruled by an elite, if that's what you're trying to convince, like George Will said a couple of years ago, he said, there's nothing wrong with the elites, it's choosing the right elite. Well, no, the elites are essentially anti-democratic. Think about it. And imagining or fantasizing, one might say the same thing. The blue collar, the working class, the new toy of the Democrats. If voting Democrat, they would say, is against their own interests, and you might think they're wrong, you might say they're wrong, but you're not one of them. So you might allow that they know the difference. You don't do that. You make this ridiculous statement that they're voting against their own interests. Like you're not one of the masses, young man. Mr. Gavin Young, you're not one of the masses. Are you above them? Have you studied them from on high? Are you prescribing ways of being? What to believe and what not to believe, what place religion should play in what part religion should play in your life? Tell me, do. If you're going to be examining things, you need to include yourself in the examination. These are huge characteristics of elitists that are getting us nowhere. They've been here all my life. They fail every time. And then they turn around and say that the people who failed to be convinced by them were voting against their own interest. Just think of the arrogance of those statements, of that perspective.